This is SoulCharge, the podcast for women leaders to take the highest level of ownership of their power to create results now. I'm your host, Stacy B. Let's dive in. Today's episode of SoulCharge, I am joined by a very special guest. I am joined by the chief activator and lead consultant, Ryann of SoulCharge. So I'm excited to be joined by this very special team member. So Ryann and I have been doing business together for many years now. Ryann started out as a client, has become a dear friend, and we very quickly saw the synergy and opportunity to be the vehicles in carrying this mission forward that is SoulCharge. On today's episode, Ryann talks about her unique journey of us starting our work together and how different the SoulCharge journey and work has been for her compared to the other personal development and mindset work that she has done over the years and in her journey. And it's such a beautiful experience for me witnessing Ryan's journey of applying these timeless principles, these practical, the practical application that is SoulCharge, and seeing her take the highest level of ownership of her life and her journey, and just being a walking embodiment of SoulCharge and what we are here to do. So without further ado, let's dive into this episode. Welcome to SoulCharge Podcast.
Yay! I'm so excited.
It's so good. So let's kick off the pod with this question that we love so much. If this podcast was your opportunity to record something for the last time, what would your message be, and why do you want them to hear it?
My message would be that you can create whatever you want.
That's so good.
That's the message.
Yes. Well, and of course, it's just such a perfect segue into what we plan to talk about today with SoulCharge, and really leading the charge to help women understand that they can create anything that they want, and that is now conversation. It doesn't have to be a process or lined with beliefs or disempowering thoughts. Yeah. So let's dive into SoulCharge. So SoulCharge, it's very interesting as every time that I tell the story, just because I'm taken back to the moment in India where I was in 2018 when I knew that real estate was the right now vehicle and I had to step into a new vehicle. And this idea of SoulCharge came through. And I remember when I heard the name SoulCharge, at that point, it felt so big and this like very like elusive, just like energy in the distance. And fast forward to now, it's like I can't imagine, any other name describing what we're doing. But SoulCharge is very much the teachings and the profound, simplified approach that started in Truth Teachers. And it's so interesting now going back, like why Truth Teachers had to come forward. But SoulCharge is very much, the result of so many women leaders exuding, they struggled with the same thing, and this very practical approach to that process and what that helps them transform. So let's talk about SoulCharge, and I'd love to dive in, like from your perspective, Rye. Like you've been along for the ride, and we're now here. What are your thoughts?
So SoulCharge always felt very elusive to me too. Like when you would talk about it, even in my Truth Teachers journey. So to give you guys a little bit of context, like I worked with Stacy in the Truth Teachers and then went on to get the Truth Teachers certification between 2021 and 2022, somewhere in there. And at the time, it felt a little bit bigger and a little bit heavier at that time. And then even when you told me about SoulCharge, you were like, I'm finally going to do it. I'm finally going to buy the building and do the thing. I was still like, the word soul still felt a little hard to hold, right? Like just intangible. And, and I was watching you do it. And then when it was time for us to do this together, which we've been trying to come together forever, it was almost like SoulCharge became the it became very more real to me, right? It became
Mhm.
this space where it was like, oh, like this is my journey distilled down. And
Mm,
it didn't feel that way until we decided to come together.
yeah. So good.
And now I just totally understand the word soul,
Mhm.
in a way that I feel like I didn't when you would talk about it before, where it was just kind of like, that's just a nice word people use, right? Those kind souls, right? Or, that's good for my soul. But like, what is your soul?
Mhm.
And that was really kind of what felt very intangible to me that feels much more grounded now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's so interesting hearing you share that because, like, I think that's what I was relating to and resonating with as well was like soul charge and especially being able to convey that to people and really like share the mission and the message. It's like, how do you describe the soul? And what's so fascinating is you embody it, right?
Mhm.
And it's not until coming together that
Right.
that could happen
Sure.
because you embodying soul charge is
Mhm.
what teaches the other women leaders like
Yeah.
what that looks like and what that actually means.
Yeah. And again, to me, like I said, soul was just this weird word that got thrown around that there was no real resonance or understanding behind. And I'm like waiting for you to ask me the question for me to explain it. And I'm like, please don't, because I still don't know if I have words yet,
Yeah.
um, to really kind of better understand that soul, except for that is like that soul charge leader is connected, right? Like
Mhm.
really connected to yourself and to your higher self, and to God in a really meaningful way. And like I said before, I didn't get that, right? Like it was still
Mhm.
kind of in the gobbledygook of who's my higher self and who is God and what is my soul and all of those things. And again,
Mhm.
I think it's just this really beautiful, fluid thing of it really is just about living heaven on earth.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Well, and I was walking through this in my brain the other day, and I think it's such a perfect moment to share this is that, like, in the beginning, if we think of like truth teachers and that curriculum, it's like we had to shine a light on how we were disconnected. Like, we first had to shine a light on where we currently were to
Right?
be able to go to where
Sure.
we want to go.
Mhm.
And so it's like, because I was reflecting on like the soul charge teachings and the results that the women are getting are
Mhm.
so fast and so profound. Of course, I'm asking myself, like, why wasn't I teaching that in the beginning?
Yeah.
And so I was reflecting on, like, oh, no, it's because I actually had to bring this attention first to the women to see where they were disconnected so that they could be connected to bring heaven on earth, like you just said,
Yeah.
so that they could bring their experience with God as the creator of their reality on earth to
Mhm.
fruition, where if they couldn't start where they were
Right.
and learn how to implement that, like not implement it, but learn how to see the disconnect to connect,
Sure.
then we would just be piling concepts and principles and teachings like on that toxic soil that we talk so much about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you for saying that because I feel like I felt that way in the beginning too. Like when you were like, I'm going to take the truth teachers into this like 12-month really intensive program into
Yeah.
this 6 week, this 12-month really intensive transformation. And even then, like even the whole year made it worth it. Right. But
Yeah.
then to then say, no, no, we're going to distill this down to 6 weeks. I was like, that feels like a lot. And so
Yeah.
to even as a receiver of the message,
Mm,
and now somebody who gets to carry the message, it's
mhm.
really fun to have seen it be distilled down to the simplicity, right? Because there
Yeah.
are so many concepts in the work that we do, and everybody brings their own understanding of those concepts and their own set of beliefs and ideas to the work that you were doing in the Truth Teachers. Whereas what I think is beautiful about what's been created in Soul Charge is it doesn't really matter where you're coming from, right? Like if you're brand new to this kind of work, Soul Charge, it fits that model. If you're somebody
Mhm.
who's done a lot of spiritual work and you're still just growing and feel really called to do this work, the way that we do it, right? Like it still applies.
Mhm.
And I think that's really beautiful and really powerful. And that's probably why, we both had to go through the journey we went through
Yeah.
to get it to this really simple, distilled down place.
Yes, exactly. Well, and with Soul Charge, it's like what is Soul Charge? It's very much like unleashing these women to create anything
Mhm.
that they want.
Yeah.
And as I've gone through like my journey, to share my answer to the question that I asked you, it's like if this was my last moment, if this was my last opportunity, how do I want people to feel? What do I want them to know?
Mhm.
I want them to know that they can create anything and do that right now. And I think that's the part with SoulCharge that just gets me so fired up and excited, is that like what we're teaching these women and unlocking in them actually activates that. And
Mhm.
that can be a possibility for them right now, which is like why I'm on this planet, is to help people like realize that, because
Mhm.
there's so many stories that we have of how long things take or how things are hard. And we're going to do a whole series on that. People, don't you
Yes.
worry, Ryan and I on that, because there's so many things to dive into, but it can be simple and it can be direct. And this is the vehicle to activate that in women.
This just kind of came through to share when you were saying that, like that is the power of soul charge, because when you work from soul,
Mm,
that's where the magic happens. That's where the right now happens, right?
mhm.
So the truth teachers was kind of the predecessor, right, to
Yeah.
it, in this like understanding the concepts and distilling them down from a very, you know, from a very structured box, right? This is the way we move through the world. And this is, you always say that, like, we have a very linear view
Mm,
of creation, like, okay, here's my goal. Here are the linear steps that I need to take. And when you are operating from, your current reality and your current view in the world, that's the way it's going to have to play out. Whereas that's the magic of soul charge. Because when you're playing at that soul
mm.
level, that's when you kind of get to skip steps.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's where you quantum leap collapse time is exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Beautifully said, by the way.
Thank you.
Yes. So, Rye, for you, like in this process of like
Mhm.
creating anything that you want,
Mm.
what is something in Soul Charge that like is a very simplified principle or teaching that it's like you've applied it, or what's been your experience just playing around with that?
I think the thing that is feeling most resonant right now is the identity work, right? Having been, you guys don't know this about me, but I'm a lot like you. I'm a very smart person who, when I learn a new concept, I want to study it 6 way from Sundays, which is like much to Stacy's chagrin. She's like, can you stop consuming all this content? But when I came into Soul Charge,
Mm,
I was just like, why does nobody know this stuff? Why is nobody teaching this stuff? And I went on this like mad kind of search for information and concepts. But I went back, like, I was like, I don't want the YouTube version of this. Like, I want the old school version of these concepts, like really digging into universal law. And I share all of this because self-concept work and identity work is something that's talked about quite a bit.
mhm.
And you get into the subconscious, right? The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. And you get into all of these principles, and it gets to be a little bit overwhelming. And so what I love about the identity work and the self-concept work in Soul Charge is it's no longer seeing yourself as the version of you who has this or does this or achieves this or accomplishes this, but really seeing yourself as the creator, right?
Mhm.
And that's something we've been talking a lot about in the work that we've been doing here lately. And I feel like it was just this tiny little puzzle piece that wasn't necessarily out of place, but just
Mhm.
kind of clicked in, where it was like, oh yeah, it's not just a matter of seeing yourself as the woman running the business, driving the car, living the life, rocking the body, whatever your thing is really seeing like it's all of it, because you are the creator. And that to me is just this tiny nuance that was never once in all of the work that I did and all the reading I did. Again, it was see yourself as the person who has it, not
Mhm.
see yourself as the creator.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was such a big shift for me in the soul charge process, where it was like, oh yeah, you don't just see yourself as the woman driving that kind of car, because you're going to want a new car next year, you
Yeah.
know, or next month, who cares, right? But it's like you're the creator of it. So it's not identifying with the external things, because again, when we're identifying with the person who has the thing, we're still externally focused.
Yes. Yeah. So good. It's so interesting because since I've made that shift in my personal life, what you're talking about, my entire like meditation and morning
Yes.
routine
Mhm.
has completely changed.
Good.
Have you seen this too?
Yeah.
Where like before it was like I need 30 minutes and it's like I'm going to do a meditation, I'm going to do a reflection, I'm going to journal a little bit. And now I'm finding that like I'll meditate, but it's just very much like how I feel called, and
Mhm.
it's a lot of mornings, like, I don't have a morning routine. It's because it's that connection, that soul charge, right? It's that energy coming from that place of I'm already the creator. So the
Mhm.
things that I was journaling about I still on some level felt separate from those things.
Yes.
But
Uh-huh.
when I go to the root or go direct, and that's what I like, love this work so much. Part of what you all may not know about Ryann and I's brains is like, we like to go direct and we like to go fast. And so this curriculum is like mirror reflection of like who we be as people, of like, let's get to it. We don't have time for anyone to be in suffering. We don't have time for
Right.
like, it's life is too good. We can create so much
Mhm.
beauty. So let's start creating now, you know?
Right.
But it's fascinating how much shifts like in
Mhm.
just the little things, like the routine when you start to embody what you're talking about.
For me, it's my morning routine has, yeah, I would agree. It's very simplified, right?
Yeah.
Because again, it's very driven by me instead of being driven by the right way to do things, right? And again,
Yeah.
that's the soul charge magic, where
Mhm.
there was this idea that again, in all of the books I was reading and the concepts I was consuming, is that there was a right way and a wrong way, right?
Mhm.
Like this is the step-by-step process. And if you don't do it right, it's
Mhm.
not going to work. Where again, when you start seeing yourself as creator, the steps don't really matter, right? The process doesn't really matter. You can't do it wrong because you're the one creating the process.
Yes.
So for me, it's in the conversation that I have all day more so than the spiritual work, right? Like it's the conversation that I was having again in my head all of the time was, am I doing it right? Right? Like, am I in alignment? Am I going to be able to call this thing in? Is this going to work the way that I want it to? There was still a little bit of doubt in, was I doing the process right? Right. But when you come from the place that there's no way to do the process wrong because you are the process,
Mhm.
it just simple that conversation all the time. And it's so funny because I'll catch my brain down a rabbit hole trying to figure something out. It's like, that's not my job, you know, versus, in the past, I feel like I would have been like, oh, this is interesting. And I would have wanted to pick the rock up and turn it over and look at it and study
Mhm.
it. And now it's just like, that doesn't have to be part of my reality if I don't want it to be, because I'm the one creating it.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, like, I never wanna, like, talk about what we have as the shortcut, but I'm fucking telling you, everybody, what we have is the shortcut. And I actually saw this post, by it was, Sarah Blakely, Spanx Sarah.
Mhm.
Um, and she'd posted something to the effect of, like, if you're gonna bring a product into the world, like, the way to figure out how to invent something is just, like, figure out how to do it better than everyone else. And,
Yeah.
like, what we have created here is better than anything on the market. And that feels so good to stand behind because it's not an arrogant thing. It's a simplified thing, and it's this certitude in not just the external results, but the internal. Like,
Mm.
I have to speak life into this. So you guys, I was uploading a bunch of videos yesterday on Zoom, Zoom videos into our Dropbox, and I come across a video of Ryann from July 18th, 2024. Okay, not even a month ago. And I'm uploading a video of her from this week. I open the video and homegirl looks completely different,
Right?
like completely different. And to the point where I'm like, Rye, as a part of our onboarding process, we have to get our clients to do before and after pictures because it was wild. And so
Mhm.
it's like, it's not just about achieving more results in a quicker amount of time, but it's about like who you're being in the world and this level of like peace and calm that looks like you just got a vampire facial, to kind of life into that right now because that's going viral.
That's fantastic. It's really interesting that you say that because you don't notice it, right? You look at yourself in the mirror every day, but then I saw a friend last night and she snapped a picture of us. And I mean, I see myself on camera a lot, right? Like it's literally what I do for a living. So
Yeah.
to me, I'm one of those people that like, I don't even really pay that much attention unless I'm having kind of a crazy hair day, which I feel like I am today. But most days I'm like, I'm good, let's go. Like the camera hides enough. If I just put some lip gloss on, nobody will notice. Like that's kind of my philosophy for being on camera. So anyway, this picture's taken last night and it's totally impromptu. It's taken by an 8-year-old, right? Like it's taken by my girlfriend Danielle's child. And I'm like, oh my God, I like completely different person. And then I sent it to my significant other and he was like, I really love that photo, right? You look really happy. Like
Oh,
that was his feedback. And I was like,
yeah.
yeah, and I take a lot of pictures and I would never tell you that I wasn't happy, but like I can see it. Like I can see it in
Yeah.
my body language. I can see it in my eyes. I can see it in my posture.
Yes. Yeah.
So wild.
It's so beautiful. And I feel like we're both getting emotional here,
Mhm.
right? Because it's like happy people create happy results. Happy
Mm.
people create happy children. The future is in our hands. Like the future is our children. And like we need to check ourselves. And like what you just said, it's like so magical, right? Of this work because like the way you feel is
Mhm.
directly tied to your results. Like
Yeah.
that's what everyone's talking about self-concept, right? It's like feel the feeling now of driving the luxury car. Feel the feeling
Right.
now of your ideal partner. Like, but what we're talking about today is like, let's amp it up and go to the top of the rung versus like this incremental, let's feel good when we get the thing. No, let's just go to
Yeah.
that overarching
Yeah.
vision.
No, that's a really great point because it's still, and again, we talk about this in SoulCharge. This is another concept borrowed from Neville Goddard, right? The thinking from versus thinking to, right? Because the way self-concept work is taught currently is we think to the version of self, right? We think to the version of self who has car, money, business, house, relationship, whatever, instead of thinking from, right? And so that's ultimately what we're talking about here is this idea of thinking from that place. Like when you are the creator, the ideas are better and the like it's so, and I'm going to give you another perfect example of how quickly this happens. In Stacy and I've been working together, what we determined about 6 weeks since we came together on SoulCharge. And she shared her vision with me, and Stacy's a visionary and her visions are huge, and I'm like, it's beautiful and fun, yeah, whatever, let's get to work because that's me. um, but what I found myself the other day in visualization, because that's been something that's been really powerful for me, is visualizing. Like the thought that came into my head was like, we've got to hire more coaches. Like it just, where before I would have been like, well, we got to figure out all these steps to achieve this thing. And it, like the thought was like, no, we got to hire more coaches. We're going to need more people to serve the women coming into this container. And it was, like I said, there's not a thought I would have had 6 weeks ago, because 6 weeks ago I would have been like, I need to know all the steps from from here to here. So I can think to the woman who who does ABC, XYZ, who's serving Y number of clients, who's making, whatever that is. And now it's like, oh my gosh, we're gonna need some help.
Yes. I know. I was dreaming about Valerie last night, and I'm like, would she come and just do like the client service? Because we need someone that's just focused on like client service, right? Because Jenny's like, yeah, she's so maxed out already. So yeah, I love that thought. Oh, so with SoulCharge and the simplified process of it, right? What do you feel like is different about SoulCharge than the mindset work out there? Because a lot of the people that come our way, I feel like, they've done a lot of the mindset work. Even like when we started working together, like you had different coaches and had a whole track record of mindset work that you had done.
Yeah. Stacy was mindset coach number 5.
Yes.
No, that's a lie. I think it was number 4. But anyway, so to me, what I have learned is the difference between mindset work and the work that we do in SoulCharge is that it is limited to the mind, right? And when we limit things to the mind, we're leaving out a couple of components, right? We're leaving out the magic, right? When you stay in your own damn mind, you leave out the magic, right? You leave out the soul, you leave out the mind, body, soul connection, right? You can't do it without the body and the soul. And so mindset work is excellent, right? Like it is a starting place for most of us, right? We've been taught, you've got to think positive, and you've got to, like those things. There's nothing wrong with mindset work, but the reason I think this is so different is that mindset work is still coming at it from a very practical, linear process.
Oh, that's so good. Yes.
It's still very much like, well, you have to try to control all 70,000 damn thoughts that you have every day to, you know what I'm saying? Like that's if you don't have undiagnosed ADHD that you have thoughts in a day. Right. So, that it feels like more work. It feels like more work to do. You said that yesterday, and I was like, oh, that was really good. I actually wrote it down. Because like, it's true. Mindset work is it's more work I have to do to manage my mind. Whereas the embodiment piece of being the creator, right? Being that soul charged leader, which is synonymous with the woman who creates whatever she wants. There's so much simplicity in that, right? There's no, like I said before, there's no doing it wrong, whereas according to the way a lot of people teach mindset, there's a way to do mindset work wrong, right? There's a process of which to find your thoughts and shift your thoughts and run them through this model and this program and this thing. And here's how to change your identity in 4 bajillion steps and all of those things. And like I said, I'm being a little snarky because that's my personality. I think all of that work was very needed because it led us here. But So no disrespect to any of those creators, because we wouldn't be here having this conversation if they didn't create those things, right? Because again, that's who we are as souls, is we're always trying to make it better. We're always trying to expand. It's literally what we were put here to do. So I say that because I'm a marketer at heart, and like, we throw rocks at things, but I really do have a ton of appreciation and respect for somebody who, created whatever modality and methodology in their teachings, because that couldn't have been easy to do. But all of that to say, to me, it's that mindset is like just scratching the surface. And for some people, mindset work's going to get them a lot of results because the surface is such a mess. But for those of us that have been on a journey for a little while, the mindset work eventually loses momentum.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's exactly why I started getting obsessed with the mindset work in my journey back, in 2013, when I went to India and like went to India a few times and just like did the Tony Robbins and did all the kinds of mindset. It was like, for me, and it's funny now as I'm like hearing you talk, and our personalities, at least on the culture index, are so similar, is like, we need the direct shot. Like, and I kind of, I associate it with the example of like, tell me what time it is versus how to tell time.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, a lot of the work I was experiencing out there was very much like, this is how you tell time. And there's all these steps. And my brain can't function in that. There's too many details. Like, I need the simplified, like direct route. And it's interesting just even like thinking about that aspect. I actually hadn't ever before you just said this of like, SoulCharge is such a match for women leaders because so many of us women leaders are visionaries.
Yeah.
Right? We don't have time for the 7-step strategy that I got to do XYZ with. Like, and I think that's part of why this, like, the teachings that we have are so in the moment and breakthroughs happen so quickly, like, because it's like designed with that in mind. And I hadn't thought about that connection before.
Yeah. And again, the mindset work is, I'm going to go back to as it comes up to say this again. It just leaves out the magic, right? Like I believe mindset work, this is my, unofficial hypothesis theory, I guess, is that mindset work was created out of fear of really talking about the magic, right? Yeah. Because when you talk about the magic, you get ridiculed and you get like, think of, even like when The Secret came out and everything, what was that back in 2008? Like there's a lot of backslash, right? There was a lot of, theories and just a lot of people thought it was malarkey and that it was bogus and that it was, whatever, and sorcery and then all these other things. And so it, to be able to talk about the magic. So people are like, well, we can't really talk about, the fact that we're just these like souls living in human bodies, creating whatever we want. So mindset work was kind of developed to, this is just kind of a theory that it was developed to make it palatable.
Yeah. Yes. Well, what's coming through right now, and I'm loving this so much, this conversation is, mindset work was designed to manage the human experience. And the thing that we actually have the opportunity to do right now is to change our perspective, to stop seeing ourselves as the human experience and to see ourselves as the creator experience. And that's why the magic applies, is because we're no longer managing our symptoms. Yes. We are elevating or creating what we want to be. Yeah.
So fun.
Yeah. So good. So let's talk about SoulCharge, like the programs a little bit as we wrap up.
Sure.
This amazing conversation today. Do you want to kick us off?
Sure. So SoulCharge is the foundation, right, of the work that we do. So it's this really beautiful 6-week, 12-session rapid transformation foundation that is really meant to address any area of your life where you're not living up to your full potential. So that's what's really beautiful about this. We work with women leaders, many of them, at least myself, when I came to mindset work, I thought I had a business problem. We discovered that was not the case. Right? But it doesn't matter what area of your life that it is that you're not getting what you want. SoulCharge applies to that. So what I love about SoulCharge is it's just like really foundational tools that you're going to use every day for the rest of your life. I was talking to a new client yesterday and we were talking about that. And I said, what I love about this work is, yeah, it's the 6-week container. Yes, it's 12 lessons, but like this work, these lessons, this modality is these are tools that you will have for the rest of your life to really embody that soul charge leader. And to me, I just think that's really beautiful, because we can all pull tools from different places, but like now all the tools are in one place, right? Like I think in my head, it's like the messy garage, right? Where you're like, all the tools are in here somewhere. I just got to find the one I'm looking for. Whereas like SoulCharge is like, here's your beautifully organized toolbox with everything you need, so you can find it as quickly and efficiently as you need to, which my brain really likes.
Yes. I love that analogy.
I know. Yeah. It's so weird, because like, have I ever pulled a tool out of a toolbox? Probably not, but it worked for this example. But I once lived in a house where the tools were everywhere, and it drove me crazy.
Yes. And what I love too about the program is that, like, when our clients sign up, we do an intake process with them to really understand what the results are in the real world, in the material world that they want to achieve. Because, a lot of like what I love about SoulCharge is very much bridging the material world with the spiritual world, and that becoming heaven on earth, like that becoming your reality, is that both exist. And so, I think that it's important to say that the program, as much as it is this total internal redesign and upgrade, which of course shows in your results externally, it's very much focused on, we want to see you get results quickly, as well as, and I mean results quickly in the real world, whether that's increasing revenue, profits, results in the body, whatever, relationship results, doesn't matter. It's all a reflection of that inner state. Yeah. Beautiful. So we'll drop links to the programs in the show notes that you guys can check out. And we have some experiments that we run as well that Ryann leads, that are so powerful, over 7 days, to give you one result very quickly. So we'll drop those in the show notes too. Rye, this was such a great conversation.
I know. And like, we could just sit, like, we could talk about this stuff all day long. So it's so fun to kind of see where the conversation takes us. And I'm so excited for this SoulCharge journey. I think it's by far our best one yet.
Oh, so good. Yay. Are you loving SoulCharge? If so, hit the subscribe button, leave a review, and share an episode. We want to bring powerful content to women leaders each week so that women can be unleashed to create the results that they want now. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.